Welcome to Feral Faith, where life is messy, but we're here for it all. I'm Cassidy.
And I'm Amber.
Two friends and moms just trying to survive and thrive in this wild, beautiful chaos.
So we invite you into our living room where things may get a little fierce and spicy as we press in. No sugarcoating here, just real talk, real faith, and wildly present conversations.
We're showing up and letting our roars out. So buckle up. It's about to get real.
This is Feral Faith.
I knew it was coming this time. Feral Faith.
We keep starting these episodes laughing.
And then they're squeaking. So
Yeah, we do have a squeaky toy in the room with us. It's
so
making all kinds of noises.
it is.
Both ends.
It's both ends right now. Amber is with me in Wisconsin. We're 2 weeks postpartum, so there's going to be some background noise. Sorry. This is part 3 of our resiliency series. If you have not tuned in, get on YouTube, get on Apple, Spotify, whatever your platform is for streaming, and catch up with us. We are bringing content and tools in a very tumultuous season for people who are maybe needing strategy and longevity for how to deal with the geopolitical climate, relationship climate cluster that is
People's
that
lives,
is.
personal climates.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just
Yeah.
want to provide a space to have good dialogue and conversation that you can share with others too, because I think as a culture, there's just many things that we haven't processed well.
Yeah.
Still not processing well.
Nope.
So today we're going to talk about grief
Yes.
and try to unpack it as far as we can while we have noises in the background. It's like our background music.
I know it's a whole other kind of noise right now.
It's a good noise.
Yeah,
Like,
it
it's
is.
a good noise.
It is.
Yeah.
It fills my heart.
It does. He's a little bundle of joy.
Yeah.
That's what people need in their lives.
Yes.
They just need to have babies.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that was the command. Go have babies. Yes.
Wow.
So we will get as far as we can in discussion. So grief can be a hard topic for people.
Yeah.
Grief covers a whole lot of areas of people's lives.
Yes.
Sometimes when we hear about grief, we think it's just the loss of a loved one,
Mm-hmm.
which it is. There is grief involved in losing the physical, having somebody physically gone from your life. Like, it's just hard for people to sometimes process and to walk through. But grief is not just the loss of a loved one or a friend, as in death. Grief can also be the loss of relationships,
Yeah.
friendships,
Stability,
jobs, potential. Yeah, think of like loss of health.
Yeah.
Some people will get really sick and their life is not the same.
loss of autonomy,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Loss of a home.
Yeah.
Through it could be through traumatic circumstances, or it could be, there's like domino effects, like a loss of a job can produce loss of stability, which is loss of your home, or loss of income, which creates all these. So there's all kinds of ripple effects from losses.
And you can grieve multiple loss at
Oh my gosh, yes. Things can happen back to back to back to back to back.
And layers.
Mhm.
Then there's layers to the loss. So
Yeah.
it's not a clean thing.
It's not. How about even just loss of relationships with that
Yeah.
does to us? God created us to be communal, to be relational. Like, that is by design. So when you lose your person, an attachment in your life, it can create a lot of trauma on the inside, because you might start, well, and if we don't know how to repair, that's a hard one too.
And you can internalize that conflict, or if you never get resolution to like what happened, why did this unfold the way it did?
Mhm.
We're in a season where lots of people, and I'm sure viewers or listeners have had it, where someone just takes you off a group message, or you get kicked out and have no idea why, and that's never answered,
Yeah.
Someone walks out of your life without explanation. It's really challenging. And
Yeah.
those relational ruptures, we talked about that with Stephen Moses check out that episode too.
Yeah.
Of
Part
how-
2 of biology, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
relationships are really, it's really interesting how God has designed us to be relational,
Yeah.
to be intimate, to be attached to one another. Go and listen to our, I think Steve, we talked about attachments and what that does to us. So when you have that rupture, whether they're gone in death, or they're just gone and they're still like supposed to be in your life and they're no longer there, that can create a whole hurricane tornado of feelings on the inside. He's still asleep. Oh, maybe.
We'll see.
We'll see how far we get on
Yeah.
this. Good thing there's a pause button.
Yeah.
If we have to. And you guys will never know.
We should like come back and do different faces each time. Like, hey,
Oh, we'll swap the hat and we'll do the next. I don't think you can swap dreads.
no.
But
I mean, I could cut one out, but that won't, you wouldn't want that.
oh no, they're pretty fuzzy right now.
Yeah, I know they are. Watch your sweatshirts if you have dreads. It's like Velcro. Fun fact. But
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just think about losses that you have experienced in your life. It's important. I think it would be helpful to write them down, and it's stages too. Thinking of like a loss that you had as a child. So I lost my mother when I was 5 through divorce. And then she stayed separated from me until I was 18. Then she comes back into my life and is very chaotic. And there's a whole like all those relational, as 18, as a girl, needing that mom, but it's so chaotic, you can't attach well to that.
Right.
And that person was not safe and very toxic. Then she again separates from my life in adulthood. And then she died 2 years ago this month, and there was never any repair.
Yeah.
There was never any dialogue with her to try to restore, and she died very traumatically. And so there's a whole, ripple effect there that it can affect people.
Right.
Like I have 6 other siblings, and several of those siblings that affected them differently. And so, now that person is gone, but they left a wake of destruction.
Right.
That can be very traumatizing to people, that they didn't just age and die normal.
Right.
They died through traumatic experiences or
Yeah.
circumstances. So that can be traumatizing to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Well, and Amber and I, when we were kind of unpacking things we felt like were relevant to bring to the table today, we were talking about COVID and what that was like living through. And for me, I was working in the emergency room, right? And we didn't know what was going to be happening. They're bringing in Home Depot donations, and I'm like, do I write letters for my kids? Like, what happens if I get super sick? Because we didn't know. And it's super scary sitting in a room with doctors and they're listening to each other talk and they're going, we just don't understand what's happening. Like, that's not a sense of security. Like, talk about you've lost your sense of security.
Mm-hmm.
I felt pretty confident in my job, and now
It's not normal anymore, right?
No.
It's not at this homeostasis
No.
level. It's
No.
now at a stress, a threat level.
a different kind of thing, and you're taking it home, and are my children. So we had stuff like that going on, but then my husband lost his job. So now it's like we're in the middle of a pandemic. He's primary breadwinner. We've lost our health insurance. Remember that time that because I was per diem. So I worked a lot of hours, but I was per diem, which means I'm not insured by the hospital. So I wound up working full-time overnights, getting health insurance. And then we found out that we were going to lose our jobs because healthcare wasn't making money. So they were going to lay people off. So then I lost my job. My husband got a new job. He lost his job. I got a different job. 2020 was wild.
Mm-hmm.
And then just he and I were going through a terrible season relationally. So it's like loss of stability, loss of income, loss of health insurance. You're walking with fear, relationship loss, expectation loss. We had relational issues with our families at the time. I mean, it
was a crazy
it was a
season.
like we were one of those statistics of cluster, bad word, a cluster clutter. No. So when we were talking about this idea of grief, that's grief, and then you're grieving the potential of what you've lost,
Mm-hmm.
So it was a mess.
Yeah.
And that's what started my healing journey. Was this is way outside of anything I can process and handle.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing what crisis can do, right? Like you have this crisis event, and then you have to assess the damage of, okay, what is going on? What is happening to us? And it can take you on a journey. Like grief is an interesting journey that we can go on. Should we pause at this point? Let's pause. Okay, we're back. We had to take a pause.
We're still trying to figure it out. What's this season gonna look
If you're
like?
watching the video, we went from full to heads up. Yeah, because we don't want to go too feral on you guys.
Yeah. Mom problems right now.
Yeah.
Mom problems.
New babies, moms.
But we're back.
We are back.
We're back.
Okay.
We recapped to ourselves really what we talked about. What was the first part? So
Okay,
yeah.
crisis, right?
Yeah.
So the crisis happens, the moment that kind of rocks your life or changes things. So job loss, friendship loss, an actual physical, like somebody dies or something happens in your life that creates this crisis moment. And there are some initial kind of shock waves that can happen to you. So let's say the first things that could start happening is maybe you're in denial about it. It's really not that bad, right? Like you start telling yourself something,
or it didn't even happen.
It didn't really happen, or you start kind of minimalizing it a
or
little
not
bit.
thinking about it.
Yep.
Trying to dissociate from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might even be really angry about it too. So things that can pop up in anger can actually help fuel you through that time.
Yeah.
Like it can be energizing to be angry about something. And that could be your body's way of coping through the pain, through that loss, through some of the suffering that happens through that. So you'll get, there's just moments that could hit you in waves.
Yeah.
If it's relational loss, like betrayal, so that anger can come. And these aren't things that like, oh, that's bad. Like we're not trying to make anger negative. Now, how you behave can be very hurtful to people. So when we hear scriptures that say the wrath of man does not work the righteousness of God, or be angry and sin not, that's where you have to like watch yourself.
Yeah.
So it's okay to be angry. It's okay to have expressions of emotions in that time.
Yeah.
It's very helpful to have it too. You don't want to bottle it up.
Right.
You want to be able to express it healthy.
Well, and we say it at home with our kids all the time. We're like, guys, God gave us all of our feelings, but how we act in those feelings is what we're accountable to.
Yeah. Because that experience matters.
Right.
Like it's really happening.
Right.
You're really going through it. And so you want to be able to, so that's important to maybe to journal during those times or find a friend where you can express it in a way.
Yeah. Or process it out or just be able to get it out authentically. Like I am upset. I feel this way. My body feels like this. I'm not sleeping. I'm having crazy dreams, whatever is going on,
Yeah. Yeah. So the denial can come across too in those times of, I think we shared a little bit, maybe it really didn't happen, or we're just trying to push it down or don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's behaviors that come out in that part of the journey of grief. If I'm in denial about something, I might try to numb out about it. Um, that might be where some, those that tend to turn to alcohol, maybe there's substance abuse that creeps in to numb it.
Phones,
scrolling is shopping. Yeah.
There's such a scale. I mean, people will self-harm with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Drugs, alcohol, sex.
Yeah.
Material on the internet that's not appropriate. There's so many, we call those the beeps. We took that from another book we had done. So something else to get a feel-good response may just become a binge issue. Gambling, right? There's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so there's lots of behaviors that can pop up in those times when somebody is grieving and maybe they're not handling it or they're trying to handle it and they don't have community around them that can come alongside them to make sure that they're processing it properly.
They're not getting stuck.
That
they're not getting stuck.
Yeah. So some of the behaviors that come out of that I'm thinking of anger is when somebody maybe in those moments of grief or those moments of going through the loss is that you can go into a room and they're looking to blame, right? So somebody walks in that is triggering that moment, or there's attitudes that are going on, there's just behaviors that are lashing out at those that are around them because they don't know what to do with that anger.
Or something like small happens and cause a really escalated response. Like I've stubbed my toe and all of a sudden we're
screaming at
over the top.
Yeah. Yeah. Also the anger can, like if let's say there's a death and it's a wrongful death, that the people are looking for someone to blame it feels better to not look at that person who's died and go, okay, they're just gone. We need a reason for them being gone. So
very missional focused.
We do. Yeah. So maybe it's a, medical mishap that happens.
And you're going to sue the whatever,
Yeah. You're going to, maybe it's, a vehicular, death. And so we're going to sue the person, the company that hit the car. maybe there's, like losses of jobs. And so then we, get lawyers involved to reinstate, or so there's just things that I think are normal human behaviors to try to help us cope with that season of that initial crisis.
Yeah.
Typically, we see people in the anger denial phase within the first, like maybe 6 months of that loss.
Yeah.
Um, some say 6 to 15 months, just depending, I think, on what kind of loss that is,
Yeah.
or even how those people are processing that loss. Like my brother, when he died overseas. And there was just several months of trying to process that. Like you're dealing with other international,
Right.
there was 3 nations involved in his death. Where it happened, he's a US citizen, but he was married to a Filipino woman. So his body's being shipped to the Philippines. So there's just this whole triangulation of waiting for the nations to talk to each other. Those other nations have different ways of processing, a death in their nation. So it's not going to be, so the US has a different standard and we need all this paperwork. So then that nation has to respond. And then the other nation to receive his body, right? So there was just a lot going on at that time. And then I didn't understand the Filipino culture of processing a dead body. That was a whole different shocking process.
Yeah. Well, and even if there's something going on too, just looking at times where, let's say you have lost a family member or there is a crisis that's going on that requires emergent needs being met. So maybe there's a medical issue that arises or there's legal things that come up. Like there is even a delayed response to initiate the grieving process because you can't even get to the grief part because you're dealing with such a fallout of things going on.
Back
You
to
know,
back to back to back
we
to
had,
back to back.
we had a tragic loss in our community here, and there were so many people who were close to the epicenter of this person and what happened to them. But there was so much that had to get dealt with business wise, legally, with children, with estate issues, lawyer stuff. And it was like, I can't even process this person and what's happened because there's real, like, pressing matters that have to be dealt with.
Yeah.
So it's that compartmentalization and pushing it away, you know?
It's almost like you have to prioritize what's the immediate,
Yeah.
right? And we'll deal with these other things later.
Yeah.
I have a dear friend who is going through, her family member had medical issues and was in the hospital, like like ICU for months.
Yeah.
Right. And then when they finally reached rehabilitation, just keeping him alive was the majority, like everybody in the hospital all the time, right? We just didn't know which way it was going to go.
Yeah.
Finally reaches a place of stability, but his whole life changed.
Yeah.
He's, so incapacitated to live normal.
Yeah.
And he was the primary breadwinner for the family. And then the family had other medical issues. And then this was just compounding. Like it was such a hard time frame for them.
Yeah.
Thankfully there's some repair and some resolution, but it's not normal anymore.
Right.
It's a whole different normal. And I remember in those first initial weeks that as the family was processing things, the anger that was coming out, the frustration that was coming out, because different family members have different point of view of how a medical crisis should be handled.
Yeah.
And then you're having to work together and function together. And it's neat to see that there is some repair going on of estranged family members coming back together. So a crisis can be a good thing.
Right.
Uh, Churchill has a saying out of World War II is never let any crisis go wasted.
Yeah.
And that's my thought process too about a crisis is it's kind of a decision point,
Yeah.
a moment of like, oh, how are we going to operate in this?
Yeah.
But it's okay to have those to process your experience and the emotions.
Yeah. It can still be super messy.
Yeah.
You can still want to walk it out with honor and it's still super messy.
It is. It is. It is. And having community is really important.
Yeah.
Really important.
Yep.
So another part of the journey in processing grief could also take you to the expressions and experiences of hopelessness.
Yeah.
Which can come at any time during that of like, what are we going to do? Right? Feeling overwhelmed, feeling like,
or it's never going to end.
It's never going to end.
The season will never end.
Yeah.
The fallout from this is never going to end. We're never going to get through the other side or get relief from this situation.
Yeah. And that can actually be a more extended period of time during the grief process. It can last a little bit longer than some of the initial anger and denial. Right. That's where we really start to see people kind of start to really fall apart. You know, they get suicidal, they turn to alcoholism, they really go deep into addictions or withdrawal. Yeah, they'll just like try to shut down, they'll check out. You just, you know, you start to see that their way of life is not it doesn't seem to be helpful. They're just lost.
Yeah.
And that can be a really dark time for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It can be, but it's still a normal part of the process.
Mhm.
You know, I've talked to other individuals over time who've lost family members, and they said it took them a couple years to overcome.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because then you can start questioning your faith, you can start questioning your community, you start questioning a whole lot of things. But it's still a part of the grief experience. And even though we would like to think that it's like a straight line, that it's linear, it's not linear, because you can be feeling like, oh, maybe I'm starting to feel a little better, but then you'll bounce between the different, we call them neighborhoods, you know, in our practice of community for taking people through the grief journey. We call them neighborhoods. So you can go through the anger and denial neighborhood, hopelessness neighborhood, new beginnings neighborhood, when you start to feel like maybe you're coming out of the fog. Oh yeah, lots of noises.
Beginnings,
You got something to say.
Yep.
I got something to say. Oh, he's always got something to say. Yeah, what do you think about these new neighborhoods?
I don't want to eat. I just want to eat my hand. But it goes around. So I think that's the part people get stuck on, is this idea of grief. So I remember in nursing school, we learned DABDA: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And the thing that people, I don't think, really talk about is the idea that you can be on that for a long time. And depending on what this loss is, it may be something that you're on that cyclical pattern until you're on the other side of, you know, this eternity, right? Like, these are things that we suffer because we weren't intended to have loss. So when you get to these places where people are hopeless and they're on those false bridges and then they're coming back and revisiting, there is no right or wrong way, and there is no like linear formula for it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I wish it would be easy to say, oh, there's a straightforward path. But I think it's because like we've all suffered different ways and we have different like attachment wounds, right? So we have different attachment styles. We have different life. Yeah, life has touched us differently. We process things differently. There might be a lot of similarities biologically that we could, you know, associate with, and that we could find validity in some of our similarities. But like I'm going to experience loss of a sibling different than maybe Cassidy would, because you know, of her life experience. Like I was raised in a Christian home. So some of my thought processes through those lenses are going to be different than what she experienced, because she had losses in her life at a young age and she didn't have that Christian lens put on her. And so I think that it's really important to remember that we all are going to process our losses differently. Yeah. And to hold space for that.
Well, and even what I've found interesting in my own reflection is my siblings, we all experienced the same things. And we all experienced those losses and that grief differently. So we all had the same thing happen to us, but how it impacted us personally was all different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, you may be
your different age groups, right? So your developmental stages are going to be different.
What's your attachment strategy? Because your siblings may have different attachment strategies than you, and you know what's all the things that come with being your own person and your own nervous system. So even, you know, everybody could be on a bus that gets into a car accident, and everybody feels very different about what's happened. You know, and it's just so having lots of grace with what it looks like for people being different is important.
Yeah. So the neighborhoods, the anger and denial, hopelessness, and then the behaviors that come out from it. But then as we start to make those journeys, we can come out on the other side towards new beginnings. New beginnings can start to look like, oh, maybe there's just a like the sorrow is lifting or the heaviness is lifting. Maybe I want to start getting back out again and visiting people. Maybe I want to start having visitors come over, or I want to share my story, or I want to maybe if it was a loss of a spouse, it could be, a couple years down the road and you start looking at, oh, maybe I want to start, looking for another spouse again or a person in my life. Or maybe if you lost a child, you like, oh, maybe we can consider having more children.
Yeah.
We had a foster situation that we thought was going to turn into adoption. It didn't. But yet it stirred a place in our heart that was like, oh, we lost something that was very dear to us, but maybe we have capacity actually to hold space for another child. And that created our adoption journey, but it came out of loss,
Right.
It was a whole series of back-to-back losses, but it was like, hey, actually we do want to do this.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's losses of jobs that create a crisis that's like, actually I want to do something different with my life.
Yeah. Or we're going to move, or we're going to do whatever.
Yeah. Divorce can do the same thing, that loss of a spouse. And maybe you feel like, oh, I want to recreate myself, or I want to do something. So you do something new. Friendships. Maybe you're like, you know what? I'm tired of loss of friendships or whatnot. And I'm going to get intentional, right? Like, and I'm going to become I'm going to work hard and labor at these relationships. Maybe that's something I need to recreate in me so that I can be the friend that others are looking for.
That was my 2020. I said, I can't, there's something that has to change here. So that all of that grief and loss and the onslaught of what I thought was the end of something really birthed a new season in my life and my healing journey,
Yeah. So she didn't let the crisis go wasted.
Right.
So new beginnings can look a lot, but just depending on what kind of loss it is. If it was a loss of medical or like health, maybe you want to, after you get over that crisis, you start to want to say, hey, actually, I want to get my health better.
Yeah.
What can I do? Right. So there's, it's
infinite scenarios.
Yeah. It's all over the place. So it's holding space for one another and not trying to push each other into, well, you just need to get over it. Right. So we're going to talk about
the scriptures.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a part of the journey that some of us being brought up in certain circles or certain cultures that we were told to just get over it. We want to call that the false bridge. So let's say another crisis happens and you see something going on in that person's life and you want to tell them, well, you just need to get over it, right? Like you just, they're in heaven and Jesus is with them, or we start throwing out all these Christian platitudes.
God has another plan.
God has another plan. We start using all these one-liners.
He'll use everything for good.
Yeah. And we just kind of want to cover that up, right? Like we just want to make them feel better. So we say these things, but that's actually not very helpful.
No.
And
it can be very hurtful and very shameful. And it can make people angry, even if it's not spiritual or religious, saying those things of, oh, maybe another time.
Yeah. Because sometimes what happens is maybe a friend's loss or a person that we know their loss reveals to us pain that we haven't processed and dealt with. And it might be painful for us to actually have to think about it and sit with them in it because it's stirring up our own stuff that we don't want to deal with or we haven't dealt with. And so it's very revealing how people react to loss and pain. But we also hear a word happening in our culture called spiritual bypassing, where we want to try to turn it into this spiritual thing to just make them shut up or stop processing it because we're not allowing them to sit in the reality of it. And that's not giving them the help that they need to overcome it.
Yeah, that's not faith.
It's not faith. It's not faith. It's just language that we've learned to try to band-aid over it.
Misappropriating scripture to try to remove yourself. Like people who've said those things to me in my life, it was because they wanted to push it away from it. Like
it's usually the other person revealing the other person's position of it.
And then leaves that person in isolation.
It does. And that can create more trauma and more pain because now I'm alone in my pain.
Right. So listen to the episode before where Maureen is sharing, or we're all sharing about what it's been like having your safe community push your experience away. So go back and listen to the first episodes with Maureen as we're unpacking this.
Yeah, I think we called it the bedazzling of the bandages, right? Like we can just make things really pretty to try to cover it up, but it's not helpful. It's not helpful at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, but take a minute if you're listening to this and just kind of pause about your own grief journey
Pause about how you've handled other people's grief journeys. And if repair is needed in relationships, that's okay. Allow this to be a episode that you could share with someone to create content or create conversation, open the door,
truth.
and just be like, hey, I'm relearning some things about grief and suffering and loss in people's lives. And I just want to have a conversation that could say, hey, could we repair, or could we talk about this, or could we build our friendship and learn how to hold space? If you think about the story of Job,
when he was suffering, Job suffered greatly. He suffered the loss of his income, his children, his livelihood, his faith. He's having all these challenges, like deep, hard challenges in his life. And his friends came and just sat with him.
Yeah.
For 7 days, they sat. And in the Jewish culture, that's called sitting Shiva, where you just hold space to grieve. Right?
Yeah.
You just sit with one another. People come over, they tell stories, or if the parent wants to, or the person wants to, right? But most of the time it's silence of just crying with them, of just grieving with them, just being with them. There's no advice giving, there's no fix it, there's no shoulds, it's just kind of being with them. And that's that withness that we talk about. Just, can we sit together in the funk? Because I guarantee each one of our listeners has funk.
Yeah. Well, we can't not.
None
of us are going to walk unscathed through life.
Does your poo smell? My poo smells.
Yeah.
Like my funk smells. Surprise! You could mask it all you want with all those pretty little pooperies that go into the toilet, but it still smells because you're having to use the poopery to cover it up.
Yeah.
But if we could just be honest with one another and say, hey, we all go through life.
Yeah.
Like, life happens to us and it sucks and we don't have all the answers and we may never know.
Yeah.
But can we just be with one another as we process through these things and just hold space and keep the relationship above the problems? I guarantee you'll have some really deep and valuable relationships in that. So no spiritual bypassing. No trying to drag people over the false bridge.
Well, and there's no reason to be putting timelines on people. Or, I forget what I was reading the other day on social media, but it was, I should be handling this like a Christian. What does that even mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I read the Bible, I see a lot of profound expression of grief and loss and suffering. And like, you read Psalms, you read Proverbs, you read Ecclesiastes, Book of Lamentations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is grief and loss and suffering. And then it's this idea of how do we then navigate it in a way that honors the king? Well, we have to honor each other.
Yeah.
When everyone rushes through Job, they forget about the fact that his friends didn't say a word until he was invited into that conversation. And then Job's response to how they were, dude, you must have done something. And he's like, guys, what the heck? This is super not helpful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, we had said the other day about how Job's wife is so upset and says, curse your God and die. And it's, how many times I've heard it taught that, like, what a horrible, wretched woman. And I'm like, pretty sure that she lost her children.
10 children.
In one day.
In one day.
Her husband's livelihood, his health. Like, she is suffering the same thing. And how quick we are to pass a judgment on her because she's having an angry response or such a broken response in that. But we don't get curious. I heard it preached from the pulpit, like, oh.
Or these things happening to you because there's a demon.
Because there's something set up
against
something
you. Inside you. Or there's something, some principality up against you. Or something. And it's like, there might be stuff that's happening. You might be reaping what you've sowed. But in that moment of loss, that's not the time.
No.
Right? That's not the time to like start throwing things at people. It's like, can you sit with them and hold that space with them and let God minister to them?
Yeah.
Like, if he has discipline to give to his child, he's going to do it.
Yeah.
But I guarantee he doesn't do it by killing someone in their life.
Yeah.
Or taking away. Like, he doesn't, that's not how our God works.
No.
He might enter into the discipline that's happening, but he's not sitting there going,
how
am I going to hurt my children?
Yeah.
No, it's the goodness of God that leads men to repentance. It's Romans 8, I love you and I'm with you in this.
Yeah.
we will get into suffering and why bad things happen to good people. We will get into that in our, hopefully in the near future, because it's important to talk about suffering.
Yeah.
Because we don't know in our culture, in the Western culture, how to suffer well.
Yeah.
You
We
know,
like
and
to make it go away fast.
we like to make it go fast, and we have laws and we have protections and systems in place to make pain go away very quickly. Like how many of, like statistically, I bet we could find really quick how many people are addicted to pain meds because
Oh,
they
yeah.
want it to go away, right?
Well, then you have other things like antidepressants, anti-anxiolytics. There's so many medical bedazzly
Mhm.
band-aids that can go on because people are having complicated grief.
Yeah,
And the reality is, have they been able to grieve well?
yeah.
Have they had space to grieve well? Has anyone helped them walk through grieving
Mhm.
well?
And just listen to their story.
Yeah.
There was, no, I think, I'm not sure if I shared this one in the previous recordings of one of the trauma healing groups. I had a gal be referred to me because her other groups were like, she just keeps telling the story over and over and over. She was an elderly woman and she really had suffered loss and was hurting, and everybody would listen, but then just try to like, okay, now we need to, you need to get over this, you need to get over this. And so finally, I think one of her friends called me and was like, okay, we need to get her into a trauma healing group. And I'm like, all right, tell me what's going on. Nobody had just sat with her story and just wept with her.
Yeah.
Paul tells us, weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice. Like, can we just hold space for people in their deepest lows, their valleys,
Yeah.
and their highs?
Yeah.
Like, I know people who've left me because of my highs.
Oh, I have.
They couldn't even sit
All
with
the
the
time.
highs. It was almost like they were looking for like, oh, we need to just know all the bad stuff. But like
Yeah.
when joy came or mountaintop seasons came,
They couldn't step into that
They
without
couldn't.
feeling envy or jealous or
Mhm.
anger or frustration or when's my thing coming or you don't deserve it. Like there's so much malice. There's good.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, I know that's a lot of just kind of grief in itself is a hot topic for some, and maybe in our circles we don't know how to process it well. So hopefully that'll give you some thought processing to kind of go through and consider your own grief journey.
Yeah.
Maybe you got stuck along the way, maybe you're still grieving and you've
Right.
not been able to process it. That would be a good time to get a friend and just say, hey, I want to process some things with you. Can you just hold space for that? I would learn to set up safety parameters on those, like have those relationships with people. Like, I don't need you to fix it. I just need somebody to listen.
Yeah. We don't need
And-
trauma dumping.
No, we don't need trauma dumping. But there's a part of the journey that can be really healing, and that is learning how to lament.
Yeah.
We mentioned scriptures. There's a lot of emotional.
There's a whole book.
There's a whole book.
There's a whole book.
Yes. And David is an amazing example of expressing his experiences with emotion, the highs and the lows. David went through a lot. Like if you just read his stories in Kings and Chronicles, and you just understand what he had to walk through as just a human being, there's a lot to unpack in his life. He had a lot of loss. He had a lot of pain. Some of it was self-inflicted and it was reaping what he sowed. And some of it is like out of the blue, like, where is this coming from? Why does he feel like he's having to suffer this?
Even
And
when Samuel's coming to anoint him, his dad doesn't even acknowledge him as his own
Yes.
kid. I mean, it's from the beginning. As soon as we're introduced to him, it's like, oh, he's just the turd in the field.
Mhm.
He's a little clot out there.
Yeah.
Christian word for a clump of dirt.
Yeah. So David does some great expressions in the Psalms about, God, why have you forsaken me? Or, how long are you going to let me suffer, Lord? How long?
I'm
Lord?
breaking on the inside. I'm dying.
Yeah.
I'm so grieved to the point of death, right?
Yeah, he's like, I cry myself to sleep every night,
Yeah.
the tears upon my bed. Then he'll be like, Lord, strike my enemies, take them out. Why won't you let me go after them? So
All on fire.
yes,
Sing.
sons of Zebedee,
Yeah.
thunder, Lord, lightning.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of expression. I was first exposed to laments when I got to go to Africa 7 years ago. And when we were doing this music workshop, one of the teachings that one of the brothers did was on laments, and how a lot of the hip hop music industry was about expressing the lamenting going on within the Black communities, of how they felt oppressed, how they had been oppressed, how they had experienced racism, generational issues that were going on within the communities.
And so it became this way to express. So expressing with clothing, expressing with type of branding, and expressing with music. So when we went over there, we taught the community how to express and lamenting to the Lord as a community. And remember, we're talking to communal nations over there, so they already have this idea of singing together, being together, working together,
crying
they're
together,
crying together.
all of the things.
Yeah, they have a beautiful way of coming together. And so they wrote the song and took it out into the community to express some of the lament, some of the pain that was in them. But also a call to like, we can do better as a community. And it was really sweet because eventually when we took the song out into the community then comes out and joins us. And pretty soon, like all the kids are singing it and the adults are out there and they're watching, and it becomes this beautiful way to also not evangelize, but just express to the community a love for them. So now that we teach it in our trauma healing groups, we create a way for people to go and sit with the Lord, read a psalm, and then they themselves go and express their pain. Like, our God is not offended at you expressing your big emotions. Because guess what? Most of the people in the Bible and people on this earth and our God have big emotions.
Well, not for nothing, Jesus is going through the gamut of emotions too. So it's like it's all through scripture.
Yeah.
It's beginning to end. There's so many emotions and they are derived from the king.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about several of the scriptures together in trauma healing groups and unpack it of like, let's just look at what these people are experiencing and how they're expressing it. And it's not sinful to express our emotions to our God and to one another. Now, of course, I'm not going to get angry and punch my sister out, right? Like, I'm not going to do
Unless
that.
I need it. No.
Well, yeah. We threaten to sit on
We've
each
done
other.
that. We do.
Yeah, we threaten
Or
to sit
kids.
Our kids, yeah, I like to use that one quite a bit.
Yep.
Oh, you want to do that? I'll come sit on you. It's a big joke now.
Yeah.
Especially if her daughter would be like, "Oh, Miss Amber, you can come sit on me."
Yeah.
Yep, I'll do it. I'll do it.
But the idea is that we can have those feelings. And, there's unfortunately been this, I don't know where it came from or when it started, but when we worship, it's not this whole like, I'm having musical time with God. Worshiping is the idea of putting your mind on Him. And our mind is on Him, not just when it feels good or not just when there's a really great song. And He says He's with us when the waters are going to, like, they're not going to overcome us. He's with us in the fire. He's with us in our suffering. And we are co-crucified. So the idea that He can't sit in our suffering and we can't just go to our dad. And I think bottom line is there's so many people who don't understand what that means to have that daddy love. Like He is Abba Father. And how do you go to your dad and be like, this really stinks and I'm sad or I'm angry or I'm frustrated or why is this happening? He doesn't have to give an answer for the why, but he can sit in that.
Yeah.
I can sit with my dad and say, this sucks.
Yeah.
And he still be good at the same time.
Yeah. No, He is good. He is good. And He's with us, like Emmanuel, God with us. He's never left us or forsaken us. He's there. But I think in our pain and in our moments of emotions, or our nervous system is overloaded, it can feel like He's so distant, right?
Or he's turned his back on
or He's turned His back or His face from us. And He hasn't. He's never done that to His children. He won't do that to His children. He will continue to be faithful and true. But pain can make us turn inward, and it's like
enemy mode.
It's enemy mode. Like, but think about, like, I think when we talked about what is a wound of the heart, and we use that physical thorn or that physical cut expression, like when pain comes, that is all the brain can think about, right? Like, I got to get that splinter out. I've got to get that boo-boo stitched up. I got to get that covered up, right? And when it's throbbing, it is so hard to focus on anything else.
Right.
And then the body is sending everything it can to that location to heal, right? So all the white blood cells, all the antibodies, everything going to it to heal. But in the moment of like the smash thumb, what kind of expressions can come out of a person when you're in that kind of pain, right? Like we jokingly say that when you hit your thumb with the hammer, the first words that come out of you reveal what kind of language you've learned.
Right.
But it's true, it can happen in loss as well. Of
Right.
like the pain can feel so overwhelming that there's things that I'm expressing because it is overwhelming. The body just is like, I don't know what to do. And so you can see tears in people, like things are brought up, right? Tears are an expression of high emotion that's coming out, just
Yeah.
feeling overwhelmed, feeling great sadness. And we can have some cultural disassociation with tears, right?
Yeah.
Like we hear it, men refuse women sometimes with their tears. They can't accept, they can't, or sometimes just certain cultures, men don't cry, right? Like we talk about that in our groups of, what did you grow up with believing about
Yeah.
tears and expressing your emotions?
Well, and what we hear a lot is men don't suffer it,
Mhm.
right? So men have to be strong, and then women,
So
their
weak.
emotions can't be too big, or
Mhm.
then they're discredited as being too emotional.
Right.
So
But
we have
as
lots of
children, if
statements.
you've heard things though from a little age of, you're stupid, shut it up, I'm gonna give you something to cry about, right? So what do you learn about tears from a little age of like,
Right.
oh, tears mean more pain, right? Tears
mean
mean
isolation. Tears
tears
mean
mean isolation, tears mean, that it's gonna cause more separation in the home, and separation
Or
pain
shame.
and shame pain in the home is it's as if you're burning your hand
It's
on a
detrimental.
stove. It's very
It's
painful.
detrimental to children's nervous
Mhm.
systems.
Yeah. So then
And
as
even as
adults, you
adults.
grow up with that those belief systems. It's really hard when you're grieving to accept the tears. And then you become more shameful of them,
Yeah.
right? So some cultures actually create wailing times, right? Some will hire, you read it in scripture where they hired the wailers for a person's passing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it still happens in some cultures where there's this overexpression of emotion. But like it's interesting that they use that, but how beneficial is it for them? Because in some of our trauma healing work of the nervous system, we we exaggerate emotion to teach children, like, so we'll like do this work of our bodies and then we'll say, okay, now we're gonna make a really angry face and we're gonna exaggerate it, right? We're gonna and it all, and then we're gonna release the tension from that. Is actually teaching the brain that when I have an anger emotion, that it's actually not that big a deal.
Well, and it has to have a cathartic response.
Yeah, and we need to release that of the nervous system. It's teaching us how to let go of that
Getting the energy.
electrical flow that's going on in the body, the energy that's built up. So lamenting helps with that as well, because it gives me a time to like slow down and put my thoughts into some kind of words to express to the Lord. And it's very beneficial to share.
Yeah.
So if you write a lament, it can be a poem, it can be a song, it could be any kind of expression. I've seen it done in dance. We had one woman in one of the groups do a dance, and that was beautiful. It was wordless, but it was still expression because of the emotion that you see through the body movements. But in writing a lament, every lament always has this component, which makes it a lament, is the complaint. I'm complaining to God about my circumstance or my experience or something going on. So there's 7 parts to a lament, but they always have a complaint.
Always have to have a complaint.
Right. So you can start out with addressing God, or whoever it is that you're addressing. You can even write a lament to a person.
Yeah.
Like like when my mom passed, there was some lamenting that needed to happen about that loss of any kind of repair before her passing. So it was this idea of like, oh, I need to get those emotions expressed as if, writing to that person. So, but if you're writing it to God to express your pain, or to a person or to a group, like we've done it in group format too, where each person kind of picks a part of it and puts it together in one, a poem or a reading. I think we did something similar to that over in Pakistan, where we had the men write one, we had the women write one, and then I think we tried to combine them and see. And so that was a neat experience with the community coming together. So there's always an address, like who's it going to? Maybe a review of, you're trying to get your brain to remember, okay, God was faithful in the past, so he'll do it again for me. But right now I need to remember. So that also can be part of the joy memories too, of remembrance. Like when you read the Torah, there's a lot of feasts for remembrance, times to remember. Every year, there's 7 moments of remembrance, so that we can have a time of reflecting.
Friday night is supposed to be remembering.
Yep,
too.
Friday,
Shabbat
Shabbat
day is remembering that we get to enter this rest. Well, why do we get to enter this rest? Oh yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's times of remembrance set out through the rhythms of scripture.
And it's to cultivate joy.
It is.
It
Yeah.
is to remember, reflect on who he is.
Yeah.
So the complaint, and then also if there is a confession of sin, if there was a moment of weakness in the experience or in, the pain that you're going through, like just tell it to God. I responded wrongly, or maybe some of this is a consequence of moral failures or whatnot. So release it to him and say, God, please forgive me for
Tell him
this.
your truth. He already knows, and that
Mhm.
is so hard to do sometimes
Yeah.
when you know that there's something you're holding on to or you want to keep it covered up. But it's like he already knows.
He already knows.
And
Yeah.
it's amazing when you say it, there is again, that cathartic out in the nervous system because you can have so much turmoil.
The shame is building up on the
Yeah.
inside, right? So then I go into cycles of hiding it,
Yeah.
putting fig leaves or bedazzled bangles, bedazzled bandages on things
Or
to
you
cover
stop
it up.
praying, or you distance yourself from people. Like there is the symptoms are gonna carry
Yeah.
if you try to keep things covered up. There's
Yeah.
just no way to get around it because that's again the body is trying to tell you that something's wrong.
Right. So pull that bandage off.
Mhm.
But sometimes you're actually innocent.
Yeah.
Like you're just caught up in somebody else's failures or struggles or loss or suddenness or accidents or whatever. Like there can be also an address to God of like, I am innocent in this. And that's okay too. Like let him know, like I didn't do anything wrong. And David talks about that too. Like, Lord, I've done nothing.
Yeah. Well, we say collateral damage.
Mhm.
We have to use that
Mhm.
terms in our own seasons in our life right now. Like there's collateral damage that we are suffering.
Yeah, because of other people's choices.
Right.
Yeah. And that can be hard, really, really hard. But that's it's part of the process. Maybe you cry out to God for help. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. I don't and just ask him for help. Um, Sometimes God does not respond. And sometimes he does,
Yeah.
and that can be done in the writing. Like when you write out a question to God for help, maybe sometimes you might hear this is, what he wants you to do or how he feels about it. We do some of that in some of the Emmanuel joy journaling.
Mhm.
We practice listening to God. What does he have to say about this moment?
Yeah.
And then maybe you need to make a vow to continue to praise him, to continue to worship him, to continue to acknowledge that he is God and that he is with you in this. So not all of those parts are present in a lament except for the complaint.
Yeah.
Always has a complaint. And sometimes all you can do is eke out the complaint. This sucks, right? Like
Yeah.
this is unfair. Or
Why?
why?
I remember
Yeah.
I had a very simple lament before we got pregnant with my son. We had a pregnancy that we lost, and why? That's all I could say.
Mm-hmm.
But what a different landing place when you can sit and rest and know your father is in that suffering and in that moment with you.
Yeah.
And I experienced it on both ends where, I had community like Amber and rally to say that I'm here with you. And then I had people come in and dump and spiritually bypass it. Like
Mhm.
you declare and demand and do. It's like, nope.
No.
Why?
Yeah.
Why, God? What is this? Why?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
he's faithful to be in that and he's faithful to come back. You might not get the answer right away. You may never get the
maybe
why
never get the why.
ever.
Yeah.
But it's the idea that there's such an intimacy in the suffering with him that I have come to not be afraid of or anticipate, but just it's almost like you relish in the suffering. Like I am so glad
Mhm.
you're in this with me.
Yeah.
Because I get the image of clinging to dad's robe, or like holding onto his leg as
Like a little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. The beauty of a lot of what Cassie and I share is expounded in sharing with someone else.
Yeah.
Like when you write these things or sit with him in these things, sometimes a lot of trauma gets jumbled up inside the brain.
Yeah.
Right? Facts, timelines, all these things. And I think we shared that in a couple of the other podcasts when we were starting this trauma healing series, that it helps to get it out
Yep.
and to share it with someone. And you can even tell them, say, hey, I don't need your response in this. I just need to share it, because then we start practicing getting it out.
Yeah.
Getting it out of our system, getting it out with each other.
Dump that bowl of spaghetti on the
Dump a
table.
bowl of spaghetti and trying to find those noodle ends. But just sharing it, I don't know, it just makes it enjoyable with someone, especially if they can receive it without condemning or judgment.
Well, and like I know I forget the name of it. I'm blaming it on lack of sleep, but there is a real neurological response too for when you start narrating what's happening inside your body, because it's again activating the creative side of the brain. So it gets you out of panic and puts you into curiosity about what's happening to you. So it's, I forget the name. I had just looked this up because I had a conversation with another dear friend going through a very hard season. And she was like, I don't know why I feel so much better having just gotten it out. And I was like, hey, Google,
What's that called?
what's the name of this?
Yeah.
And there's a name, but it's getting the brain out of the panic mode.
Yeah. Getting it out of those cycles that it gets stuck on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this wraps up our grief journey and lamenting together.
Yeah.
So go write your lament. Go find a friend and share your grief. And yeah, we'd love to hear your comments. Be sure to like and subscribe and share us.
Yeah. Or send us
We're
an email.
growing in our community of listeners, so that's exciting. But we do love to hear back from you. We'd love to be able to just hear how this is helping you. And be sure to listen to our little tools that we're kind of starting to add in between some of our series, because we do want to see you build resiliency in this time.
Yeah.
So for our faith, we're shining off.
Signing off. You're gonna have to hit the button because I can't reach it.